Hi, this is Miss Litton, and these are some APBiologists. Say hi. Hi. I've been stabbed repeatedly. Anyway, we're going to review chapter 23 and 24, and then I want to remind you that your quiz will have the shadow of chapter 1. So go back, look over some group shared notes, go over a few questions from there just to make sure you're ready. Okay, so these two chapters combined together are talking just slightly about plant evolution. We don't have to go into great detail about it, just the big ticket items. And then we move on to plant structure and organization. So let's start off with the first part. The first part is that probably land plants evolved from a green algae, and that algae's name is chara. And it's a big deal when plants came onto land because they allowed so much other life forms to flourish on land. Primary source for food, production of oxygen, help keep us cool, renew the air. And think about it, when you have more other, let's say, herbivores on there, then once you have herbivores, you can have what? Carnivores and omnivores, and then all those things have to die, and who gets to work on those? Decomposers. So it kind of opened up the whole food chain, food webs there. For plants to move onto land, keep in mind they were in the water before, and you have done this before where you could carry somebody in the water, like in a pool or something, because they have greater what? Where normally you wouldn't be able to carry them. What do they have? Hannah, you can carry her anywhere, but what do they have? Greater what? Buoyancy. And so all of a sudden now they're on land and there's nothing to hold them up. So they had to develop secondarily thickened walls that would give them support. Why was it so important to be held up? They needed to be closer to the sun, yeah. Okay, and once they're on land, they're also more directly exposed to light, which could cause what? Yeah. More light, more photosynthesis, but what's bad that could happen? Starts with an M. More mutations. How can we cover a mutation better? Not being haploid, but being diploid. Yeah. And remember, there's the sporophyte and the gametophyte. Which one is diploid? Sporophyte. And the sporophyte gained ascendancy on land. All right, so scarcity of water. They had to be able to acquire water. Where is their source of water coming from? The soil. So that means, and you learned about this thinking about today, that the soil would have a higher water potential than the roots. Good. Okay. Yeah. Yay. You're really awake. Okay. So this is a really good little chart. What is this? What do we call these little charts? Cladograms. Good. And you can see at each node where it's branching and the different adaptations they had to acquire, or they did acquire as they moved on to land. And so if we look at the evolution of land, protecting the embryo, they all have in common. When you're on land, you got to protect that embryo. Then some gain the ability to have vascular tissue. Could they still protect their embryo? Yes, this is an add-on, okay? As we're moving, this is a derived trait, having vascular tissue. What are the two types of vascular tissue? Xylem and phloem. Which one is alive? Yeah, phloem is alive. Okay. Do you remember the two names of xylem that I had you learn? Hint. I'm carrying a
plate.
Another name for a plate. Tracheid. And vessels. Tracheid and vessels. Okay. So, and then phloem has, these are two types. Okay, so two types. The one that's more like a pipeline is a vessel. Phloem has two parts. It's not an option. There's two parts. What are the two parts? Sieve tube and a companion cell. Sieve tube and a companion cell. Which one has a nucleus? Companion cell. Are you really tired today?
Yes.
You're just doing this to be obedient? So I would record a review for your other friends? They're really nice. Okay. So then the next step up is to have a seed, and what will seeds do? Seeds will enclose a what? Embryo. Okay. So you can protect an embryo, but you can protect it even more if it's in a seed. Okay. And then last but not least was a flower. What were the two categories of flowers? Yeah, the eudicot or dicot and a monocot. And we looked at different characteristics of each of those, yes? All right, skip through that part. The next section that we went over was alternation of generations, and this is a have to. You want to know this. The large structure that you see growing, that is a sporophyte, okay? That, nice coloring. That is your sporophyte, okay? Large diploid structure. Within that sporophyte, you can have an area that is going to do meiosis, and sporophytes will always generate what? Spores, okay? Those spores will undergo my arms, my leg, my mitosis to form into a gametophyte. A gametophyte could be very, very small, maybe even microscopic, or it could be a large algae, in the ocean. But this gametophyte will do mitosis to make gametes. Now, we don't normally envision that. We always think you got to do meiosis before you make gametes. But because the gametophyte is already it's already haploid, it's going to do mitosis in order to make gametes. Two gametes get together through a process called what? Fertilization. And that fertilization, you will then form a diploid zygote, which will undergo mitosis to form the sporophyte again. There are only two structures that you talk about that are diploid. The zygote, which is going to be easy to remember because you're going to think two gametes come together, form a zygote. That's diploid. And then it grows up to be the sporophyte. That's diploid. Everything else we look at is going to be what? Not diploid, but haploid. I modified the form. Did you see those notes? Yeah. And freehand.
Is this that chrome but
Yeah,
not
it's
gold?
chrome but now gold. Yeah.
I really like it.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Important
We
things,
need to
right?
take our picture today.
Oh, matchy match.
So did Miss Stutz.
Yes, she is matchy match with the flowy.
Yes, we need to do that. Okay. Sorry, reviewees. I had to talk to Miss Chavoy. Okay. So definitely know your alternation of generations. Did I turn something on? Or do you want to just say these out loud? Or do you want to click them? You got clickers?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do Birds of Oak Park because I really like that list. 142 number. Did I start it? No, that would be stupid. Yes, baby.
142.
142 number.
142 species of birds.
142 number.
In Oak Park. Oh wait.
Okay, there's more of you than this. Oh, so sad. How is this question? Good job, California Thrasher. How could, if this statement is false, how could we make it true? Sporophytes don't develop into spores. What would be another way to do it? They generate spores by meiosis. Okay, that would be a better way to do that. Mallard. Uh-oh. Okay. Yay, 100%. Got that? Or were you lucky? Lucky or good? Got an extra person in here. All right, done with chapter 23. Let's move on to chapter 24. Chapter 24, we talked a little bit about just a quick description about flowering plants. Okay, we're way on the end of the spectrum now. We talked about how you had to have embryo protection. If you didn't, you were just algae, like green algae. Maybe where did plant probably evolve from? What was the name of it? Char. Good. Okay. Embryo protection from here on out. Then the next one up is vascular tissue, but bryophytes don't have that. And then we talked about dropping off seedless vascular plants. From here on up, they have seeds. And then from here on up, they have flowers. Flowers, lots of habitats, tiny to big, and the ovary develops into fruit. We went and discussed the different kinds of plant tissues. So let's just kind of break those down. Ultimately, you have epidermis tissue. That's easy to remember because that's on top, right? That's the part you need to remember. We have ground tissue, and then we have vascular tissue. Okay, vascular tissue we talked about even today in last class. You know that one. That one is xylem and phloem. Okay, epidermis, that's easy to remember. You have some sort of outer tissue. You just want to think of some of the adaptations that the epidermis can have. Can you think of some adaptations it has? I know you can. There's one that you were making slides of today. What? Stomata, yeah. What did the stomata allow for on the epidermis? Gas exchange, cooling of the plant, water movement, yes? Okay, those stomata could be sunken, they could be protected with hairs. You could have little stinging nettles like trichomes. On your epidermis, you could have root hairs that increase surface area for water absorption. So there are adaptations to the epidermis. Ground tissue, we talked about that there were 3 types, each serving a different purpose. What is the most common of all the ground tissue? Parenchyma, okay, found everywhere. Parenchyma, alive or dead? Alive, because I can still call them, remember? And they have thickened walls. Where might I see parenchyma? Celery. And then sclerenchyma? Dead. Yeah. Sclerenchyma, like shells of nuts and things like that. Okay, so, oops, sorry. Okay, so here you saw root hairs, a stoma, an opening. A lenticule is like a stoma in a stem. Trichomes, here's another picture of trichomes. This is parenchyma, general plant cell, parenchyma with their thickened walls, and sclerenchyma, very thick and dead at maturity. Vascular tissue, here's xylem, here's a tracheid, here's a vessel. Tracheid, there's a vessel on my tracheid, okay? Vessels are thicker, wider, faster, stronger. So tracheids have the tapered ends, vessels do not. Here you saw this today in class as well. You have your sieve tube and your companion cells. And then here is a great chart of all the plant tissues. Okay. So a couple of things here. Meristematic, these can still do cell division. In plants, your apical meristems are on either end, on your shoots and your roots, to help you grow taller or to make your roots grow deeper. Lateral meristems you find in eudicots. That's called vascular cambium would be an example, and that allows you to increase in girth. Monocots don't have that, but eudicots do. Remember we talked about most monocots only last for 1 season. They could be annuals, but things like a palm tree is perennial, but it doesn't increase in girth, it just kind of keeps growing taller. Okay, then we look at simple and complex cells here. Complex, we look at xylem, vessels, tracheids, like we discussed, sieve tubes, companion cells. And then here are your parenchyma, parenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Notice these say chlorenchyma. What is that? What could that mean? What could they have in them? Chlorophyll. What does that mean they could do? Photosynthesis. All right. We then just went through a series of pictures looking at roots. We looked at shoots. We looked at leaves. We compared monocots to eudicots, just so we could understand a little bit better what we were looking at. Now that we have studied roots, we know that this center area right here, what layer is right there? It doesn't matter if we're a monocot or a eudicot. Do you remember? Really important in water regulation. Not an epidermis, but a endodermis. Remember with the Casparian strips? So right here is where you have your endodermis, okay, is right there. On the outside, this is where you have your what? Epidermis. And you could have little root hairs to increase surface area. Okay, in the stem, you have scattered vascular bundles in monocots, whereas in eudicots, because they have a vascular cambium, what I'm putting in black right there, that's meristematic tissue that can make more xylem to the inside and more phloem to the outside. Leaf venation, you looked at both a eudicot and a monocot leaf today when you use the clear fingernail polish and the tape to take an imprint basically of the underside of the leaf, so you could count the stomata for gas exchange. And then this is talking about flower parts and members. All right. This you don't need to know, just kind of growing seasons. And let's see. I'm sorry. Go. Yay! Is that 2 in a row?
Yay.
Okay, 2. Think about your own body to give you a hint. Now. That's the lead in all classes, right there, 3, and you got it first. Oh, we already did that question. Okay. Things about roots and adaptations for roots, just so you know, to support a plant, you have as much root material as you probably do shoot material, right? It's the same above and below ground. You can see some of those adaptations here for root hairs. What do root hairs do? Increase surface area. Okay. We looked at a difference between xylem and phloem, but what they have in common is this endodermis, which helps with regulation. It's purple in the picture, whereas this outer ring is the epidermis. You can see just different patterns of the xylem and the phloem in both of these pictures. And moving on to other root adaptations, they can anchor the plant so it doesn't fall over. Part of its structural support from moving onto water to land. They can absorb water, minerals. They can store nutrients. There are different types: fibrous, tap roots, prop roots. We looked at roots where they're coming up out of those mangrove trees, where they're coming out of where they are and poking back up. And why are they poking back up here, these mangrove trees? What is that an adaptation for? Acquire what? Not carbon dioxide. They're not doing photosynthesis down there in the mud. Not carbon dioxide, but oxygen. What do they need oxygen? Cellular respiration. Who does cellular respiration? Okay. All right. We looked at mycorrhizae again, okay, an adaptation with a fungus, helping it acquire certain minerals and water absorption, paid back from the plant with sugars. We looked at nitrogen-fixing bacteria, helping the plants access nitrogen, really good for us. Okay, moving on to stems. They can have little lenticels, which are like stoma of the leaf that allow for gas exchange. If it's a brown stem like this, what gas do they want? It's a brown stem. If it's a brown stem, it's not doing photosynthesis, so it needs what gas? Oxygen for what process? Who does cellular respiration? All cells. Okay? All right. Okay? We looked that they're herbaceous, they're woody stems. There are underground stems, horizontal stems that are different adaptations. Then we moved on tendrils, curling stems. Then we moved on to leaves. Is this a monocot or a eudicot? How do you know that? Branching vascular bundles. Okay? And again, this would be a monocot, and that is a eudicot. Perfect. And we talked about the space in here, also good, because it increases the respiratory surface, the area for gas exchange, by having those spaces there. We are looking right there at a stoma, allow those gases in and water goes out. And then there were just like different arrangements of leaves. You don't need to memorize that anymore. Some modifications. Why would you have leaves that catch flies? Yes?
To get the nitrogen in the flies.
Yes, to get the nitrogen in the flies. So they live in nitrogen deficient soil. Why might you have leaves that curl around? Yeah, help them, they're more herbaceous and they're trying to get up to higher elevations so they can get more what? Sunlight, good. Why would you have thickened leaves like the cactus?
So you don't
Store water. How do you protect other organisms from stealing your water? Put some spikes on there, some spines to protect you. Good job. All right, and here there was some more Venus flytraps. And here, let's see, you don't know that one. It's okay. You don't have to know that anymore. You need to know that. Oh, here we go. Let's hit 4. Will we have 4? We will! Excellent! Best of all! You don't need to know that one.
6 of this.
We don't need to know
No,
that. Yay! Good job. So now all you need to do is open up. I'm not going through that with you because I'm trying to force you to go back and start reviewing. Open up your group shared notes for chapter 1. Maybe try a few questions and get ready for that too. Okay, super proud of you guys. Go over there and get a piece of licorice. Red or black, I don't care. Not the cut up one, those are chromosomes. Yeah, don't eat the chromosomes, eat a different one.